Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would review this little video. I believe by that of DAZN Boxing, where, of course, they had the face-off of Mr. Joseph Parker and also that of Fabio Wardley. And, of course, for those of you that have not heard the news as of yet, and I only kind of rediscovered this fight earlier this week that it was going to happen this weekend, but these two will be fighting each other, and I believe more than likely for the opportunity to possibly fight that of Mr. Alexander Usyk and his titles. Now, I'm actually not quite sure if Alexander Usyk may be relinquished or vacated one of his titles and they're going to be fighting for a vacant title, or, if Alexander Usyk still was allowed to keep that title and these guys will just get the possible opportunity next or will be the mandatory. We'll see about that. I'm not actually sure about that. If someone could let me know on that, let me know. But anyways, when it comes to this fight, this is going to be a very, very particularly interesting fight. And of course, this is not the only big heavyweight fight that's going to be happening this week. And of course, there is that of the Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane fight that will be happening on Saturday as well, which of course is going to be a UFC event. And I'm also going to give my personal fight breakdown and fight prediction for that as well. But that being stated, I thought that this would be very interesting, and I always love to do these little face-offs here because on this channel, not only do I like to give my little fight analyses and my fight predictions of what I believe is the most logical outcome or what is the outcome that I believe is more than likely going to happen, but I also like to get into the psychology of both fighters, and I've never really seen either one of these guys really in a sit-down before or at least in a quote-unquote face-off. But, we'll see what ends up happening there. And once again, I do have other projects along the way. They may take a little bit to post just because, there's been so much stuff, to do outside of the channel as of late. But I am going to be posting more a little bit later, coming out with top 10, top 15 lists. I believe very, very soon, I'll be putting out, an in-away list, not only that one, or I might actually wait till after his Picasso fight. That way it gets a little bit more views. That way overall, it's right after an in-away fight. But I'll be putting other top 10, top 15 collages out there. One of the lists overall that I'm very, very soon to completing is actually a UFC list that I've been working on. The top 15 most overrated UFC fighters in the current roster today. That's a list overall that should take very, very little time to complete. And I've almost got it done. But anyways, that being stated overall, thank you guys for being so patient. Unfortunately, life just happens sometimes and you get a little bit busy. That being stated, let's get into my fight breakdown and my fight prediction. Who do I personally believe is going to win this fight? I do believe personally that Joseph Parker more than likely is going to win this fight. And I'll explain why as it goes along. But I believe that Joseph Parker, really for a multitude of reasons, I believe that he may be a little bit more consistent in terms of the jab and also avoiding a lead hand, although both fighters have a little bit of a problem avoiding that of the lead hand, and they're not always quote-unquote defensive masters. They can be hit. They're both known for somewhat keeping their hands down, but Joseph Parker has improved his defensive ability in the past couple of years, which is something that surprised me a little bit. But not only that, but Joseph Parker is someone that will have the superior speed, and I do believe will more than likely be able to avoid a lead hand better than that of a Fabio Wardley. But we'll see overall what ends up happening. I also believe that there's a possibility that Joseph Parker may be a little bit more elusive. I just think that he's going to be slightly technically better, and I think that he's going to be able to possibly beat Fabio Wardley to the punch and be a little bit more consistent, possibly a little bit more active within this fight. But we'll talk about that as it goes along. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's see what both of these gentlemen have to say. I'm going to give my concrete and in-depth analysis of what I think about this fight.
The heavyweight division currently has one king. The heavyweight division currently has one king. That man is Alexander Usyk.
Alexander Usyk, just to reference him again, one of the greatest fighters that I've ever seen. There's many debates about where he ranks in terms of the all-time great heavyweights. If his career ended today because of the resume that he has, especially being damn near 39 years old, he's a guy in my view that is at the very least a top 10 level heavyweight of all time. And there's certain people, of course, saying that, oh, well, we can't really claim that because this generation is weak and blah, 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 because AJ and Tyson Fury, they're not quote-unquote elite fighters. Well, Tyson Fury and AJ Anthony Joshua, they were guys that were former undisputed champions of the weight class. They were not overall guys that were just quote-unquote pushovers. Like, I believe that I had one commenter, compare AJ Anthony Joshua to that of a Frank Bruno. And this person says AJ was really just a Frank Bruno. He wasn't really that talented and he lost some big fights. Well, he lost some of his bigger fights, like to that of Alexander Usyk. And by the time that he lost to Danny Dubois, he pretty much was done. He was no longer the same fighter after he lost to that of an Alexander Usyk on two separate occasions. And I've already kind of explained that. But, and of course he lost to Ruiz. But the point is that I don't see in any world, overall of actual logic, any conclusion that I can say that those two fighters are anywhere near the same class. Is AJ someone that just has an unlimited bag of tricks? No. Is he someone that has an A+ level skill set? No. But he was someone that was looked at one point in time as the debatable best heavyweight on the planet. He never lost to someone that would have been on the caliber of, say, a James Bone Crusher Smith, like what a Frank Bruno did. And Frank Bruno only won one title in his career. I believe that it was over Oliver McCall, which is a decent win, but it's not a great win. Oliver McCall really was only ever a champion because he upset Lennox Lewis, I believe. Lennox Lewis only had 2 losses in his career, but the 2 losses that he did have, they were not over the greatest of heavyweights. He really was never supposed to lose those fights, but it is what it is. Anyways, but the point is that, that pretty much was the only major win that he ever got in his career. Any heavyweight that he actually ever fought that could give him problems or that was actually any good, he pretty much got his ass whooped against. Tim Witherspoon, James Bone Crusher Smith, who really is not even that good, and we all know what Mike Tyson did to him. So, I mean, it is what it is. Anthony Joshua actually defeated a lot of A-grade level names for his generation. Andrew Ruiz, Alexander Povetkin, Dillian White, Joseph Parker, even Vladimir Klitschko, although he was a bit older, but still had a lot of fight within him within that fight. So no, I'm sorry, but those fighters are not comparable. And Fury's even greater and better than than AJ Anthony Joshua. Anyway.
Heavyweights queuing up to take that crown. On October 25th, live on DAZN, 2 heavyweights will meet in what will be an explosive showdown. Former WBO heavyweight champion Joseph Parker will take on the knockout artist Fabio Wardley. Before they meet in the ring, they're going to meet here face to face. This is Parker versus Wardley. This is Face Off. Gents, here we are. October 25th. You both have a date lock in. I want to start with you. You've been sort of screaming for everyone. You've been wanting a fight. Alexander Usyk's name's been mentioned. Daniel Dubois was supposed to happen and didn't happen. How does it feel to get a date locked in against this man?
Help! I need.
Okay, my bad. Forgot to turn on the ad blocker there for a minute. Okay, let's get back into it.
October 25th. You both have a date lock in. I want to start with you. You've been sort of screaming for everyone. You've been wanting a fight. Alexander Usyk's name's been mentioned. Daniel Dubois was supposed to happen and didn't happen. How does it feel to get a date locked in against this man?
I'm very happy. I'm happy that he put up his hand. Like you said before, there are a lot of fighters that say they want to fight, but they fight anyone, but they're just saying it, I think that's a good example of we will fight anyone. And even if
I'll give both fighters a lot of credit, but especially Joseph Parker, because this is the fight that, first of all, is very, very risky because although I am predicting Joseph Parker probably about 60-40, if Fabio Wardley were able to win this fight, especially even if he was losing in the fight, it would not surprise me because we have seen Fabio Wardley come back behind a couple of times, especially I believe in his last fight against Justice Cooney or whatever that one fighter was. He was completely losing the second half of that fight, and eventually I believe he got the stoppage within the 10th round just off of one right hand. So the point overall is that this guy is very, very dangerous, and if he does hit Joseph Parker, which is possible because Parker is not always the most elusive fighters either, and he is someone that, if you're able to hurt him or if you're able to hit him consistently, sometimes he can get a little bit reluctant to throw or kind of curl up in a shell, a little bit more and fight a little bit too much on the back foot and not doing as much as what he needs to. But, once again, he has tried to adapt his style as of late So I give him overall a lot of credit for that. But this is a very dangerous fight, and Wardley is someone that, of course, has a little bit of name recognition now, but he's still someone that is relatively unproven against top-level competition. So this was a very risky fight. I can understand fighting Danny Dubois because, of course, he had the title, I believe, and he had big name recognition or calling out possibly other guys, and obviously Alexander Usyk. Why would you not want to fight Alexander Usyk if you're within the heavyweight division to possibly win all the titles and become the best heavyweight in the world? But the point overall is that, taking this fight, let me give, Joseph Parker a lot of credit here because he could have turned down this fight because, there's kind of a lot, more for Joseph Parker to offer Wardley in my view than that of vice versa. Not completely to the point to where there's nothing that Wardley can't offer Parker, but it's definitely, something in my view that offers Wardley a little bit more than what it does Parker. Just my view of it.
We're in a good position. He's a WBA mandatory and WBO, but we're not going to sit around and wait. We want to be busy.
Are you surprised he said yes?
No.
No.
No, he's shown in his career that he does step up to the challenge and he finds a way to win. And so I'm not surprised they took the challenge.
Was there any hesitation from you, Fabio? I feel like it's a stupid question. I know the answer to it, but I have to ask: any hesitation at all in taking on Joseph Parker?
No, not at all. And that's not a slight on him at all. It's words my ambition of that is the opportunity put in front of me, offered to me is not one to say no to. Obviously, there's no overlooking the man in front of me at all, but past this fight is the Alexander Usyk fight, and that is a massive. That's not a massive fight. That is the fight. That is everything.
Well, of course, it's the main fight because if you end up fighting Alexander Usyk and especially beating him, and this is just my personal view, I'm not saying that neither of these guys stand a chance, but I don't really see either of them beating Usyk. I just think that Usyk is a little bit too complete, and there are just certain heavyweights, per every generation where you can just take a look at them and say, you know what, there's just almost no one that's going to be able to beat that guy. The only one that, really, in my view, had a massive chance once Alexander Usyk was proven to be good and great enough to beat guys like AJ Anthony Joshua. The only guy that I really took a look at and said, you know what, I would give him a great chance pretty much was Tyson Fury. That really was about it. And then after I seen that first fight, I said, wow, like not even Tyson Fury can pull it off. The only other fighter that pretty much, in my view, can possibly even pull it off would be the new kid, Moses Itama. He's very fast. He's very strong. He would be bigger than Alexander Usyk, I believe, by about 20 pounds, although they would be similar in height and reach, I believe. But it would be a very dangerous fight for Usyk, someone that, could possibly compete with him in terms of certain skills or at least in certain talents. And then on top of that, he's a lot younger, very strong, very fast, and someone overall that is going to be significantly bigger than you, at least in terms of weight. So I mean, we'll see. But that pretty much is the only kid that I would give really even a major chance to defeat Alexander Usyk. And when I say a major chance, I'm talking about making the fight as close to 50-50 as possible. I don't know if there's anyone, even Moses Itama as of right now, that I'd truly favor over Usyk. But if there was one heavyweight, in my view, that would possibly have a great chance, it'd be Itama.
No, Parker being put to me was an obvious yes.
Did you watch his last fight against Justice Huni?
I did.
What did you make of it up until that, the equalizer?
Yeah, I mean, I speak to.
That's a punch that Joseph Parker is going to have to watch out for within this fight. Now, Parker is someone that oftentimes, whenever he throws the jab, he does lean his head to the right, which of course is not always a bad thing. You just can't be too repetitive with it. But, he ended up getting caught against that, I believe, against Zhang once or twice, ended up knocking him down once in the round. Thing is about Fabio Wardley is that I don't know if he'll be able to land as much with that because Wardley overall is not a southpaw. He's more of a right-hander, and Wardley really loves to work behind that jab and that right hand. But Parker's mainly going to have to watch out for that. He's going to have to watch that right hand down the middle because I have no doubt about it that Fabio Wardley, even if he is massively down in the fight, he's going to be looking to land that home run shot.
Andy, and we were in camp and we watch his fights, but he said they don't take too much away from the last fight. Yeah. Sometimes fighters have great performances and sometimes they don't have the best performances. So you got to not look at just the last fight, look at all the fights, recent fights, And he was.
Well, to talk about Fabio Wardley very quickly, just to talk about some of his faults in my view, and this is also why I'm predicting Joseph Parker to win Probably about 60-40, 70-30. I just think, and Joseph Parker, in my view, is not flawless, but Fabio Wardley has a few more faults than what Joseph Parker has. He's not someone that changes his head levels to the best of degrees. He gets caught with the jab, quite often. He's someone that, overall can get caught a little bit lackadaisical, and he's also someone that can be a little bit too lackadaisical in terms of the volume throughout the fight. And by the middle rounds and the late rounds, especially if that fighter is able to give him a lot of problems, his output will start to decrease. Now, similar things can also happen with Joseph Parker, and Joseph Parker at times seems like a volume puncher, but he's not really as much of a volume puncher as what you may think. Like, I believe the statistics, against that, of a Zhang or whatever it was, or maybe it was against Wilder, but to be fair, Wilder's someone that is very tall and very powerful. So maybe Parker, especially because Wilder was not giving him the greatest output, maybe Parker said, you know what, let me not overall get too stupid or try to knock this guy out. I'm winning every round anyway. Why do I need to throw possibly any more than what I need to in order to possibly get my head knocked off or lose the fight? There would be no need for me to. To be fair, I believe against Zhang, he threw, I believe, about over 300 punches, like over 350 punches. So Parker is someone that can give you a little bit of volume, but Wardley can give you a little bit of volume as well. However, I do think that Parker is a little bit more consistent throughout that of the whole entire round with his volume in terms of balancing the round out a little bit more. Wardley, I think, works a little bit more in spurts at times, which I do think, at times that can be a positive, but a lot of more times it can be a negative because you're not being as consistent as what you need to be throughout the round. So Wardley is someone that definitely will lose his output as the rounds go along if he does not have success against you early. And, we'll be able to tell who more than likely is going to win this fight off of who more than likely is going to win the battle of the jabs, which I assume will be Parker, because I think that he's faster. I think he's someone that changes levels to a better degree, and I think he's someone that gets in and outside of the range a little bit better. That being stated, Parker does have to be very careful not to be very advertised with his punches. Sometimes he's a bit repetitive. Sometimes he doesn't throw as much in combination as what he needs to, and he throws 1-2s a little bit too often. I think that in order to win this fight, that he's going to have to do both. I think he's going to have to throw 1-2-3s or combinations, catch Wardley after, certain times when he doesn't expect it. You can definitely catch Wardley, after a 1-2, and then he'll kind of keep his hands down, especially up against the ropes or backing up, and you might be able to catch him, especially, possibly in that close range. Sometimes, he'll disengage, or sometimes, he'll keep his hands down, even if, you're still in close range. He expects you overall not to throw again sometimes after you throw that 1-2 or that combination. So if you're able to feint, or if you're able to possibly fake him out, you might be able to land, certain punches, or if you're just able to continue the combination and mix things up a little bit. But Parker's going to have to be very educated and notice that very early. But I think Parker more than likely will do it. He's, I think, a little bit better at mixing up his game than what Wardley is.
Down the scorecards and just pulled it out. Big right hand. Justice walked straight into it.
And that's what happens, right? That's what you carry at any time, Fabio.
Yeah, maybe me in that circumstance has really been pointed to heavily, but we all carry it. We're all heavyweights. We're all big boys. We can all whack.
And against Justice Hooney, that was not the only fight where Fabio Wardley has shown these problems. He also shown it against, I believe, the great British talent, but someone that very clearly is not going to ever go anywhere against any elite fighters, David Adelaide. And then also the other fighter, I believe his name was Clark Frazier, whatever his name was. I think that he was an American fighter. He fought him twice, and then Wardley in the rematch, I think the first fight was a draw, and then surprisingly in the rematch, like, he just completely obliterates him in round 1. So, this dude definitely has a lot of power, and I am expecting the best version of Wardley, but I do still expect a lot of the same faults. So we'll see.
You'll be able to whack a bit more than most.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe I put a bit more into it. Maybe I sit into my shots a little bit more. But, yeah, look.
That's where Parker does not want to be within this fight. And sometimes Parker, one thing I will say about him is this. If you're able to hurt him or show him overall that you're just not going to let him tee off on you with combinations and that you can actually push him back, he is someone that can get a little bit intimidated and someone that will start to curl up a little bit into this, on the back foot shell where he doesn't throw as much. He keeps his hands down, and he's someone overall that, is a little bit too defensive for his own good. So, Parker's going to have to be consistent, and if those moments do arise, or if they do arrive, he's going to have to show Wardley, I'm going to push you back, or if I am on the back foot, I'm going to throw enough, and I'm going to throw shots and be willing to risk it to get the biscuit in order to win this fight. Because either fighter being too defensive could easily lose them this fight.
Knowing I have that in my back pocket is a nice little reserve, a fallback, but that's not it's never the game plan, is to run into a fight, be majority of the points down, and then try and just in the last couple of rounds wing it and win. Like, that's not what me, Ben, Rob, the team, that's not what we're planning for. We're planning to win a fight nice, concisely, put a good game plan together. But it does just show that sometimes when things don't go right, I'm not going to head down and feel sorry for myself or cry about it. It's crack on, we keep moving, and we'll find a way to win.
Where do you think Joseph is now? I always feel like Joseph has had sort of 3 chapters in his career. That World Championship chapter, and then the AJ fight, the fall off after the Joe Joyce, and now. Where do you think he is?
I definitely have to once again give Joseph Parker a lot of credit. Usually boxers especially. I mean, I've seen him with UFC fighters they've had a little bit of a downfall and then they come back and they actually can become champions. Like I've seen Charles Oliveira or Dustin Poirier. Like I've seen them either become interim champions or, the full division champions after a little bit of a lull in their career or people didn't know where they were going. But usually in boxing, it's quite rare or it's nowhere near as common to see a fighter that may suffer losses in the middle of their career, especially devastating ones or knockout losses, and then come back and then actually become a better version of themselves than what they were, when they were a champion or something like that, or possibly when they were younger. It doesn't happen too often, but every once in a while it can. You have certain fighters like, that of a Manny Pacquiao that kind of lost in, the earlier part of his career to guys like Eric Morales and other guys like that. Then he came back and got better and more technical. Then of course you have, guys like that of a Yordenis Ugas who lost certain fights in the beginning of his career, then came back, and actually became a champion of that weight class. You have certain guys, I'm trying to think of who else. Maybe I'm thinking of Glenn Johnson, who of course was undefeated, I believe, and then he fought Bernard Hopkins, lost several other fights in his career, but then came back and was able to beat, kind of an older version of Roy Jones, but still a good version. And then I believe beat Antonio Tarver in one fight and become a top 10 pound for pound fighter, although he wasn't ever an all-time great in my view, but someone that was, a decently great fighter for the day, But anyways, Joseph Parker went from that AJ fight, losing the AJ fight, then losing the Dillian White fight, and I think even losing another fight, overall, and then losing to Joe Joyce, or maybe it was just Joe Joyce after that. I can't remember. He was also not having super impressive performances over like Junior Tafa and like Derek Chisora. It was looking very close near to the end for a Joseph Parker, and I thought that he pretty much was going to phase out. But let me give him a lot of credit. I believe that he changed corners. I believe that he got some new coaches. And on top of that, he actually made certain improvements in his style. He became a little bit more maneuverable, although he's always been maneuverable, but he actually became a little bit more multidimensional in my view. He became a better defensive fighter. Now, is he someone that I would ever claim is as great as, say, a Tyson Fury or AJ or, especially an Alexander Usyk? No. But he's someone overall, once again, that definitely has improved his game, so I give him a lot of credit for that.
He's in the prime. I think he's in his prime. I think he would probably say the same thing as well. Obviously being early on in his career.
As of right now, Joseph Parker, I do believe, is in his prime, even if he is a little bit older. He's probably around, if I had to guess, 34, 35 years old, maybe 36. If I'm wrong about that, someone correct me. But the point overall is that Joseph Parker's been around for a while. I remember when I was hearing rumors about him 10 years ago when AJ Anthony Joshua had just kind of come up on the scene, and Deontay Wilder did as well. And, it was about, excuse me, it was almost about a decade ago when Joseph Parker, I believe, was the WBO champion or damn near close to it. So, anyways.
Yeah, great fighter, but not green in a sense, but still new to it. You're still finding your feet in certain aspects. World champion, fantastic achievement. To lose and then have a little...
But I do believe that Joseph Parker is at the absolute best point in his career. Now, I do not believe that Martin McCauley, of course, was really at his best in that fight. But that being stated, I don't think McCauley would have won anyways. I think that he's been a little bit more overrated, especially after that win over Jared Big Baby Anderson. although he's still a very talented fighter, but it's obvious he has holes in his game, you know, and obviously no holes in his stomach, because that dude, overall, he was 30 pounds overweight in that Joseph Parker fight. I don't care how short notice that fight was, you should not be 30 pounds overweight if you are a professional boxer. It is what it is. Anyways, that being stated, overall, when it comes down to it, so I mean, yeah, that. But Joseph Parker is someone that, you know, he's on a great win streak. Deontay Wilder, in my view, wasn't quite as good as what he once was because of the Tyson Fury results, but he was still someone that was very dangerous. And Joseph Parker pretty much took whatever possible potential to be within the top 5 that Wilder had out of him. There was nothing left after that. And, you know, of course, he also beat Zhang and, you know, I believe beat a couple of other guys as well. But this is really, you know, possibly the best win that Joseph Parker could get, you know, in recent years. Just because Wardley is a prime guy, he's undefeated. He's not someone that has suffered as much wear and tear like a Wilder, you know, and Martin McCauley was not really at the best point, you know, and Zhang, he's someone overall that was a great contender. He's a great contender, but he's not someone that, you know, is ever going to be a top 5 guy.
Bit of a middling point where you're a bit here, there, maybe fell out of love with the sport, not really up for it, not really too keen, and then now, obviously, just upward trajectory of again, top-level opponent after top-level opponent goes to show his ambition and how much he, again, must love the sport and love what he's doing and want to achieve great things again. He's had a taste of a world title.
Look at Martin McCauley's fat ass. This dude overall should be ashamed of himself. How the fuck, first of all, how him and his team overall should be embarrassed. First of all, you signed a fight on a day's notice. You have a fight overall upcoming against F.A. Agjagba. I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. And then on top of that, I understand taking the fight on short notice, but you're 30 pounds overweight, dude. Like, Andrew Ruiz was not as much overweight as what this dude was in the rematch against A.J. Anthony Joshua. Like, come on, man. Like, this guy was more out of shape than fucking Buster Douglas was when he had a beer belly and man titties against Evander Holyfield after he beat Mike Tyson. Like, Jesus Christ.
Before, and he's, again, same as me, one punch away from having another bite of it.
He's made a big jump, I think, from Fraser Clark to Justice Hooney to you. You're very much at the top table. You've been at the top table for a few years. Do you think he's at the top table of heavyweight boxing?
Yeah, well, look what he's done. Look at the knockouts.
I'm not going to 100% say Fabio Wardley is at the top table. It depends on what you mean by the top table. Of course, there's levels to everything. I think the top table right now, I mean, of course, when you talk about the best guy there, obviously we're talking about Alexander Usyk. There's no concern about that. There's no debate about that. But when you talk about the true contenders that can give Usyk overall the hardest time as of right now, I think overall, of course, I'm not going to be including Fury and, you know, those guys because Usyk already fought them. But if we're talking about guys overall that have not fought that of an Alexander Usyk, the guys right now, in my view, that probably would have to be at the top table, either by talent or results, would have to be guys like Moses Itauma, Joseph Parker, and Ajit Cabello. Those would be the top guys in my view. And then the table after that probably would be guys like Fabio Wardley, Andrew Ruiz, and certain guys like that. Now, you know, that's still a very good table, but I would not say that he's quite at the top table because, first of all, he's had a couple of very questionable performances against guys that, in my view, would not be really true top 5 or top 10 guys in that division. And then on top of that, you know, overall Fabio Wardley, he just doesn't really have a whole lot for a resume. I mean, he beat David Adelaide, but we pretty much have seen David Adelaide really get exposed and really pretty much be a fraud, you know, at least in terms of ever being a top 10 guy. You know, and then in terms of, you know, I'm trying to think who else. In terms of Justice Hooney, I mean, we don't really know how good he is because I don't know anyone else he's faced. He looks relatively talented, but he doesn't look as talented as some of the other guys there. Like, I'm not sure if Justice Hooney would really beat, you know, that of a Zhang or some of those other guys. So, I mean, we'll see. But anyway.
And each time he has stepped up, he's found that way to win, right? And WBA mandatory, I think both mandatories might be on the line here. So he is top 5 in the world.
I don't know if I can say top 5, but I mean, he's, you know, he's up there. I mean, to be fair, maybe he has a slightly better resume than that of a Moses Itauma, just because the only fighter that I've seen Moses really fight that I knew of, at least that I can remember, was Dillian White. and that pretty much was a white that was done. But I mean, it's not like Fabio Wardley has this fantastic resume. I'll give him this. He defeated Clark Frazier, and he also defeated, I believe now, I cannot remember if Clark Frazier was undefeated. I thought he was. If I'm wrong about that, someone correct me. But I know for sure that Justice Hooney, I believe, was undefeated, and he was having a hell of a time with that dude. Anyway, and David Adley, of course, was definitely undefeated when he fought him. But anyway.
And that's what you're facing. And pressure's all on you, Joseph.
Pressure. I don't really care about pressure, to be honest. Just bring it on.
Yeah.
I just want to, I've been boxing for a long time, and I just want to be involved in big fights. And I just want to fight the best in the world,
Yeah.
And he is one of the best in the world.
Is that a fair statement?
And you also really want to put some pressure on Alexander Usyk, and you want to get that major title shot, Joseph Parker. Let's be a little bit real, and that's okay. You're someone overall, once again, that considers yourself one of the best fighters in the world, if not the best fighter in the world. So, of course, you're going to want that title opportunity. I have no problem with that.
Pressure's on him?
Yeah,
Pressure's on you as well, but more pressure's on Joseph Parker.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more pressure on him. Obviously, it's his initial position with the WBO that he's putting on the line. He's mandatory.
Usually there's a lot more pressure on that of the younger guy, especially when they're in their mid to late 30s or they're fighting a guy that's in their mid to late 30s, but not always. And Joseph Parker is someone that is looked at in higher esteem, probably for a couple of reasons. A, because he's on a great winning streak. B, because he's been a champion before. C, overall, because he has had experience. And D, Fabio Wardley, and this might be the most valid reason because Fabio Wardley has just had some really questionable performances as of lately. I think if Fabio Wardley was someone that was knocking everybody out or, was even looking, maybe even a little bit less than a Moses Itama, I think there maybe would be more pressure on that of a Fabio Wardley here, or that it would be a little bit more even. But that being stated, the reason why all the pressure now is on Joseph Parker is because people have really seen a lot of this dude's faults.
He's ahead of mine, so it's more risk. But again, credit to him because he could quite easily either take an easy fight, sit, chill, just knock a guy over and relax and wait for Usyk to come back around and that, or even just sit and wait for the whole time and just wait for his opportunity to come his way. But he's not. He wants to stay busy, wants to stay active, and then not just at any level, at a top-level competitor. One of those top guys in the division said yes to. There was no hesitation between his side, no between mine. It was just, yup, let's get this on.
Yeah, we know when your side says yes, so I always think about your team and the brains trust, that's what I call it. And I feel like they said yes because they see holes there. Do you see the holes?
I think, yeah, I see gaps and spaces, but that's due to analysis and looking at things and thinking, knowing my skill set and areas I think I can exploit.
Once again, Joseph Parker has never been an expert at keeping his hands up. And I stated that, many, many years ago. I had a lot of the Joseph Parker fans, of course, come after me and say, what are you talking about, blah, blah, blah. Joseph Parker is not a spotless fighter. He does have certain faults. He's someone overall that can be timed with some of his rhythms and his movement. Sometimes he can advertise his offense a little bit too much, even still to this day. And he's someone that still needs to keep his hands up at times a little bit more. But he has improved.
I think my team may be slightly...
That's another thing that Joseph Parker is going to have to watch out for. He's gotten a lot better at tying certain opponents up and also overall keeping his hands up after he throws a certain combo or a certain punch and then he's on the inside range. He's going to have to be very careful with that in this fight because Fabio Wardley, one thing I noticed about him is that when someone's on the inside... and if they take a little bit too long, or if he notices an opening, he's going to throw, and he's going to try to hurt you as bad as possible. So Joseph Parker needs to make sure that he is defensively responsible at all times, and do not advertise your offense too much.
A bit more confident as well, as they have got my team as a whole are technically 1-0 already with Dylan and that in my corner and things, so... They feel like they've done it once already. They'll be able to do it again. But this is me. I'm a different fighter. I'm a different guy. So I'm going to go about this in a different way.
Do you see holes in Fabio?
Every fighter has holes. Every fighter has things that we can, that's what training camp is about. Analyzing, working on things that we think or know.
Big problem with Fabio Wardley. When certain punches come in, he has both of his hands down. He is not a very defensively responsible fighter. He will oftentimes, have a very, very good jab. He has a very good jab, but he's someone also that gets hit with the jab a lot of the times. And a part of the reason why is because he does not move in and outside of the range extraordinarily well. and he's someone overall that does not use his feet to the best of his ability, and he's someone that does not keep his hands up. And this is a big part of the reason why I predict Joseph Parker to win this fight. I'm predicting him to more than likely win by unanimous decision. I don't see him stopping Wardley. I think that if there is a stoppage, then more than likely it would be the other way around. But if Joseph Parker got the stoppage, I wouldn't be shell-shocked because Parker does have power.
They can work and putting a good game plan together.
You know, as soon as this fight was announced, I had a look at social media, which sometimes you're not supposed to do, but I did. And a lot of people were saying boxer versus puncher. Do you think you have the punch power to knock out Fabio, though?
Very heavyweight can knock out.
Joseph Parker overall definitely has the power to knock out Fabio, but with his style and also with the chin that I've seen of Fabio Wardley, I'm not even sure if Wardley's ever been knocked down, at least from what I've seen. If I'm wrong about that, then someone correct me. But he does appear to have a great chin, especially for how hittable he is, from what I've seen. Joseph Parker is someone that has a decent chin, but he can be hurt and knocked down a little bit more, than that of a Wardley in my personal view. But, like I said, time will tell on that, and we'll see. But, he just has to be very, very careful on that. But Parker definitely does have the power to possibly knock him out. I just don't think it's going to happen because Joseph Parker is not really someone that's a super aggressive fighter. He appears a little bit more aggressive at times, than what the actual reality is. But Joseph Parker is really more of a, 1-2 type of guy, then kind of get out of the range, kind of reset, playing a little bit over again, and then he just doesn't want to stay within the range too long, at least from what I've seen. Now, with certain fighters, maybe that he can get away with that on, he might do it a little bit, but he never stays within the range too long, at least from what I've seen.
Anyone. It's just about landing at the right time.
Do you expect to knock out Fabio?
I want to.
Yeah.
I can. That's my plan.
Yeah.
You're not going to go into fights, wanting. Of course you want to knock them out, right? But you're not going to go in there looking for it. You just got to let it come.
The way you fight recently, you've been looking for the knockouts. That's what you. When I look at your recent fights against Zhang, against Wilder, against Piccoli, you went straight at.
These are big guys, You gotta give them something to think about. And
I'm not 100% sure if Joseph Parker is looking for the knockout or if he's just kind of overall keeping him back. And, kind of what Joseph Parker overall stated there, you got to give him something to think about. I don't know if Joseph Parker has ever really been a fighter that has just ever purely looked for the knockout. There are certain fighters that do. Like, there are certain times where I've seen AJ Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder, and I could tell that they were looking purely for the knockout. I don't know if Joseph Parker has ever been a fighter that has ever looked purely for the knockout. He throws certain knockout shots, but throwing certain knockout shots is a little bit different than just going straight for the knockout. I think Parker does that in order to keep his opponents at bay, and I actually believe that it's a little bit more of a defensive tactic. Because once again, Joseph Parker is not someone that, overall really is as much of a volume guy or, overall really loves to be as aggressive. He appears a little bit more aggressive than what he actually is. He's someone that actually prefers, once again, to throw 1-2s or certain combinations. And then he kind of, overall wants to, chill out, for a little bit, kind of plan again, and then if he has to mix it up, he will. But Joseph Parker is not someone that, just goes balls to the wall.
How tall are you? You're taller than me. So it's another big guy.
Yeah.
Can we see? Can you stand up? Who's tallest? Can we stand up? Can I see?
I don't know. Are you trying to get us to an early face-off?
No, I just want to see. You're both big guys.
I think we're about the same.
About the same size.
6'4", 6'5".
They're very similar in size. I believe that Joseph Parker is 6'4". I believe Wardley's 6'5". Joseph Parker, I believe, has a 76-inch arm reach. I believe that Wardley, I think he has a 78-inch reach. If I'm wrong about that, then someone correct me. And that could be a factor within this fight, maybe about who beats who to the jab. But I just believe that I think Parker's going to be too efficient, too fast, and I think that he's going to be more maneuverable than that of a Wardley.
I'll put some heels on for the fight.
And even if Wardley is possibly more accurate, I believe that there still is a possibility that Parker can still outvolley him to a degree or hit him, even if Wardley is a little bit more accurate in the early rounds because Wardley just does not move his head enough. But we'll see.
Does that mean you go straight for looking at the knockout with him?
No, I'm not going to look for knockout. I want to have a good game plan with Andy Lee, and George is going to get me in good shape as well in terms of nutrition and strength conditioning and put it all together on fight night. That's what's exciting because you use the camp as a way of doing all the preparation and then fight night as a reward. So, okay, now it's time to dance and have some fun.
I guess the biggest reward for both is that Alexander Usyk is the one after. Knowing that and knowing what that means in terms of fighting, I think, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, how difficult is it?
One of the greatest heavyweights of all time and one of the greatest fighters of all time. Once again, I've already stated this. Alexander Usyk, at least in my view, just with the quality that he has at the heavyweight division, he's on the same level as guys like a Joe Frazier or certain guys like that of a George Foreman. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but George Foreman doesn't really have as much depth or quality in the heavyweight division as what you may think. He only has 3 total title defenses, I believe, and the greatest win that he ever got, of course, is over Joe Frazier. But a lot of the other wins, they're not really quite as impressive as what you may think. He has wins over Ron Lyle, Axel Schultz, which really he was not supposed to win that fight. And then, of course, the other big fight that he won was over Michael Moore. But a lot of the other fights that he fought, they were kind of disposable fights, at least in my personal view, or over contenders that were not really quote-unquote great. Joe Frazier was someone that I believe defended his titles, or his title, a multitude of times, like several times before, of course, losing them, I believe, to that of a George Foreman or a Muhammad Ali, but the point overall is that Joe Frazier is someone that when you also take a look at his resume, other than Ali, there's probably not a whole lot of other names on there that you take a look at and say, wow, that's a super great name. So, I mean, Usyk is someone that he was not only able to defeat Danny Dubois, a champion who I believe had 1 title defense, but on top of that, he was also able to defeat that of AJ Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, the 2 clear best heavyweights of his day. And then on top of that, those guys were former unified champs that beat a multitude of A-grade level fighters. So you have to give Usyk a lot of props.
I'll come to you first, Fabio, not to overlook what's in front.
And not say this stuff about, oh, well, Usyk is just in a weak generation. No, a weak generation was Mike Tyson's generation. Fighting guys like Pinkleton Thomas and James Bone Crusher Smith and Frank fucking Bruno. Like, give me a break. A weak era is an era like that of a Larry Holmes. Fighting guys like Jerry Cooney and all these other guys. And Pinkleton Thomas and guys like that. Pretty much the guys that were in Mike Tyson's era pretty much were the guys in Larry Holmes' era. It's just that they were in their prime against that of a Larry Holmes, but they weren't ever that talented. They weren't ever great fighters. Another weak era overall was once again that of the Vladimir Klitschko era. That's a weak era, but the Usyk era, no. The heavyweight era started to pick up a little bit more once guys, of course, you have all these guys saying that it was Wilder that saved the heavyweight division. Well, it was a mix of Wilder, AJ Anthony Joshua, and Tyson Fury. Once the Vladimir Klitschko era had ended, that was really overall when the heavyweight division started to get a little bit more saved. But Wilder brought it a little bit more back to America. But the one who probably brought it the most to boxing all around was probably AJ Anthony Joshua, to be quite honest with you. Because that's when the heavyweight division was really starting to gain a whole lot of traction. But anyway.
If you knowing that there's this big pot of gold potentially early next year.
I think it's.
And of course, around that time, that was when guys like not only Fury and AJ and Wilder were around, but then you had talents like Dillian White, Joseph Parker, Andrew Ruiz, other ones as well that I'm probably not thinking of at the moment. But, there was a whole bunch of, Luis Ortiz who was around. He wasn't even ever a champion, but he was someone that was a very dangerous contender. Like, there was a lot of talent during that era. And there's still a lot of talent during this era as well.
It might be a bit easier for me than maybe for Joe because this is my first big step into that realm of those guys, former world champion. So for me, this is the biggest fight of my life, without doubt. So
well, of course it is.
Far in my career, so to not look ahead and stay very much focused on the opponent in front of me, maybe slightly easier because I haven't tasted that other side just yet. Whereas obviously he's been a former world champion, has had a bit of that, and he was obviously close to. However, waiting for the Usyk thing to come around, negotiations, I don't know whatever happened there, and then there's an injury, so he was kind of close to getting that fight.
I'll say this, and I'm not going to claim that Usyk is quote unquote avoiding that of a Joseph Parker. But Usyk has definitely seemed tentative to take that fight. I don't think that he's afraid of Joseph Parker necessarily. I don't think that there's really anyone that Usyk is quote-unquote afraid of. But I think that he's at the point in his career to where he's selecting fights very carefully. He realizes that he's getting a little bit older and that he's worried a little bit more about making money, in my view, than just completely making a legacy. But I could be wrong about that. We've heard recent rumors that he could be fighting until the age of 41, which would mean a couple more years. So we'll see.
And things pivoted, and now it's me. Whereas my only thing was, who's the next guy? Who's the next guy? Right, it's Parker. Let's go. Let's focus.
Yeah, and for yourself, you've been calling out Usyk now.
Listen, Usyk is there, but there's no point talking about Usyk if you don't get this right. This is the fight. This is
absolutely
my championship of the world right now. Yeah. This is the fight that I'm fully focused on. There's no overlooking Fabio, because like they said, he can always try to find a way to win, but can't do that against me.
Yeah. that's a whole different discussion, isn't it? Again, a top tier heavyweight. Can I ask you guys to do something? Can I ask you, Joseph, to tell Fabio how this is going to play out October 25th?
How is it going to play out?
Trying to get these guys over all the trash talk. These guys have been respectful the whole time. They're like, God damn it. We need a little bit of drama for this.
Let's see. I can see it in my head. Right? I can see in my head that the fight's going back and forth, and I can catch him with a big shot, and it's over. Knockout victory.
Knockout.
That's what I see in the head. Doing it is a different thing. Doing it on a fight.
The way I see this fight happening is that I believe that it will have its competitive moments, but I believe that Joseph Parker will clearly win this fight. I think that he's more than likely going to win this fight about 9 rounds to 3 or 8 rounds to 4, just in my view. I could be wrong about that. It could be a lot closer. Fabio Wardley, of course, he has an opportunity to win, but I think he's too hittable. I think he has too many faults. And I think that Parker more than likely will win, but I don't see Parker knocking him out. It's possible, but, I see Parker more than likely being, pretty much what he regularly is, a guy that likes to go in and out, and a guy that does not like to, necessarily take someone's head off in order to possibly lose the fight.
It's different, and that time will come, but that's what I can see.
Fabio?
I think I share some same sentiments there. I think we know between us that there's going to be some back and forth moments. I think this is going to be one of those fights that people remember for those real dramatic individual moments of round 3, this happened, and there was a massive back and forth, and someone stumbled, and someone...
Fabio Wardley is someone that is, at times very, very explosive. Like, for those of you that remember Yoel Romero in the UFC, like, Romero would be someone that would be calm for, like, minutes, and then all of a sudden, bam, he'd just catch you with something out of nowhere, and he would just explode like a maniac. Fabio Wardley kind of has those moments to where if he hurts you, he's very hard to deal with, so Parker's going to have to watch out for that. He has a lot of power. He might be slightly bigger, and he's someone that, is relatively talented and skilled, even with the faults that he does have.
Fell in round 5, they came back at each other and went around, and it's going to be a fight that has tops and turns and swings left and right, but overall, I feel like what I've done throughout my career is find a way to win, is no matter the man in front of me, is find a way to beat them, and on the night I think I'll do the same.
I feel very confident.
Well, this is exciting.
No,
This is exciting, honestly. Like, we got this fight locked in. I can't wait for it.
yeah.
It's going to be good.
Is it strange when you're this close to each other? What is this, a couple of feet away, knowing that you are going to throw hands and it's going to hurt? October 25th, is this
strange? I find that boxing's a gentleman's sport, and there's a lot of respect. But in the ring, different game altogether.
This is the thing with this. When they said, Ada, you're doing this face-off, I was like, but these two are so nice. But ultimately, with you two, I know that you have a switch. And I've seen it with both of you, and it happens very quickly.
Well, that's the thing overall that a lot of people don't understand about the mindset of boxers or athletes. To them, at least in their minds, now every athlete can be different, but there's, there's no reason overall to really have any animosity really right here. They're pretty much fighting for the same thing. They both, are both respected boxers, and they're fighting for a title opportunity. That's why many boxers, like, people don't understand, but they'll hug after the fight because they're basically, doing the same stuff. They're working just as hard, and, they're fighting for the same thing. So at the end of the day, they can still somewhat relate to each other. It's nothing personal. It's just, overall business, and it's a job, and they're trying to win the fight. Now, of course, do some people, take boxing or fighting even a little bit more serious and have a little bit more, of a gladiatorial mindset? Yes, of course. And I'm not claiming that neither of these guys don't have a gladiatorial mindset. I think in order to be on the level of these guys that you have to have a little bit more of a gladiatorial mindset. But what I mean by, a little bit more of a gladiatorial mindset, is really more of a killer type of mindset. There are certain guys that when they get in the ring, they really just want to rip you to shreds. I don't know if Joseph Parker or Fabio Wardley, I'm not quite sure if, they have that type of switch. I mean, maybe to a degree they do, but I think that they have definitely the type of switch to where they're going to win by whatever means necessary. But there's nothing overall that comes across to me about quote unquote dark about them or anything like that. They appear to, overall kind of gain energy a little bit more through the positive side. I could be wrong about that. But there are certain fighters that, go through the negative side as well, to where they want to kill you once they get in there. Now, of course, once again, am I saying that they don't have switch? No, that's not what I'm saying. But they don't remind me of certain fighters like Mike Tyson or Roberto Duran or David Benavidez. to where once they get in there with you, they want to crack your ribs, they want to break your nose, they want to get a body.
When you step into the ring, it starts from the ring walk. Is that what it is? This is all cordial, and I don't mind these face-offs when it's like this.
Yeah.
Because you know October 25th, it gets going.
Yeah, look, because that's locked, that's done, that's in, that's there. So all of this is the fun and games, is the build-up, is this plus training is all the nice bit, is all the build to, and then it's you step up, you take them few steps up, you land on that.
Man, trying to look like a gladiator right there, man. Man, look like he's wearing a fucking dress with a bra. The fuck is that?
That ring walk, and you look out, you see them sea of fans and the cheering and the noise, and then the gears start to turn and your brain starts to move, and there's just this lock-in moment, and then that's when you know, like, okay, we're here. This is go time, game time.
Found a couple of bits. Have you thought about what it means, winning? What it means for your career?
I've thought about it. I'm not one to get too lost in what this means, what it could do for me, or the ifs, buts, and maybes. I'm very much a person to focus on the now and the immediate and in front of me. And right now, that is training hard and focusing on the man in front of me. Whatever may come after, but right now, that's not what I focus my attention on.
And Joseph, it'll be another big name added to already a big resume.
What I want to do now is just enjoy the process, enjoy the journey to fight night,
Yeah.
and prepare well. The result will take care of itself.
What can fans expect fight night? War?
War.
War.
War by name.
Of course, it's always a war whenever it comes to that of professional athletes, especially within that of boxing. You know, now once again, there are different types of war. There's a war to where, hey, it's nothing personal, but I'm going to give you my best. I'm going to try to tear you up in there. And then there's people, once again, that they're like, this isn't just war. I'm going to try to decimate overall everything about you and everything that you love. You know, so once again, it's always war when it comes to boxers. It's always, you know, who is more calculated, you know, who's smarter, you know, who's going to do this, and they're going to win by whatever means necessary, however bad, you know, they have to hurt you. You know, so yes, it's absolute war for these guys. But once again, they seem like, you know, polite gentlemen. I don't see anything that resembles, say, the Roberto Durans or the Mike Tysons, guys that, you know, almost had cruel intentions whenever they jumped in the ring.
War by nature is something I picked up along the way, but I think with this one especially,